these are really extreme examples. I mean, what would have happened if, in fact, Solomon would have had the baby the baby cut into it? But he wouldn't have done that anyway. It would be the response, right? It's not going to happen.
What's absolutely fascinating about that example, though, is that, I mean, in the different, obviously we'll get on to more phrase regimes, he really is just applying a different language game to the situation with math, in which it was just like, you find $20 in the street, okay, you take 10, and that's justice for most of us, and that's fair and equal. But for different kinds, the same kind of logic obviously can't apply it. Because what Solomon, it seems, Lyotard are very, very well aware of. So then we would be thinking part of judging without criteria would involve really just an acute awareness of how different objects within a given phrase regime are supposed to fit, or whatever this distribution is supposed to be. So if you can see it, you're really aware of how both parties, if they're coming at this problem maybe of the baby from different ways, you really are, unless you're bringing your own language game and saying this is the one we're going to use, you really might be in a position at that point to say, I see both of these and I see that there's no rule that could apply. But again, I'm still wondering, what is it in, I understand that a lot of this is stemming from a relationship to language that is indeterminate. Where does this obligation to kind of want to do this come, to want to be a just judge? I mean, is it bound up in pushing the concept of justice to its maximization, as Kant will say, or? I mean,
that's a really interesting question.
Like, why would we want to be pagan?
Especially when people want to will
something
in the negative way that he talks about it. Yeah. Why? Well, the mother. In the background, let's have this story, this rewrite of the story, that we'll get to that again. In the Catholic Church, the religion that I grew up in, the mother dies, the child, the infant, lives automatically. If it can't be both living, and a decision has to be made, it's already made. That's a description, okay? That's a description. But it's somewhat, from my point of view, is a very dark allusion to the mother who would give her baby away to somebody else. Okay, if it really was to cut the baby in two. Okay. How? So this is the question.
Maybe it goes to a little bit more economy.
Please explain.
It's inherently asymmetric. It favors the libido, so it favors reproduction. So anything that would favor reproduction.
Okay, the libido is not just the favoring of reproduction.
Oh, I understand that, but it's
because
a part
it is intimately linked up with death.
Yeah, and death is an inherent part of reproduction too. Otherwise, you.
But there's the death drive that's in there as well.
Yeah. But
the pleasure principle. And okay.
You see, it creates an asymmetry. It's even though death is an inherent part of the project, that's only there to prevent, a complete overrunning of the local resources. So
okay, let me rephrase the question. What is is there an analogy between the mother sacrificing herself and losing her baby so that her baby can live, and the church, the Vatican, deciding the mother is to die, the baby is to live? What is the presumption there? That the mother would die, would want to die, right? Okay, that's the presumption that's there. But there's a huge difference between the prescription in the Solomon story, okay? If we could agree that that's a prescription, okay? And he's the judge, sort of an early, let's say, somehow or another, Aristotelian judge by a model, okay? And the other, which is a description. For me, it is, okay? There's no negotiating, there's no adjudication. That's what's going to happen, okay? So then in a Catholic hospital, did you? So I'm trying to deal with why would someone want to do that? I'm trying to because that's really a good question. And because it flies in the face of why would someone want to die? That is, why wouldn't someone fight the whole notion of the death drive? Not that you can fight it, but you
Yeah.
tend to do so. I mean, there are a lot of people who aid, okay, and abet, the death drive. Doing things that's not good for their body. That's what I had in mind. Drinking themselves to death, smoking themselves to death, doping themselves to death, knowing what's going to happen. Yes.
I think you're also really tied into the Catholic myth of the worst suffering possible was Mary when she took her son off the cross. So why would anyone want to suffer that much? And no one can suffer as much as Mary because she's Mary.
Yeah.
She lost her child, so you brought that myth.
Jesus, right? God,
Yeah,
right? So,
right.
So that makes it magnanimous above any. There are no other
You
examples.
can't suffer as much as that. So
That's good. So
Should
there are lots of
probably
those sorts of examples that are analogous. But go ahead. You
no,
wanted
I
to say?
think so. I think that would tie in with the Catholic thing.
Yeah.
You can't be up with Mary.
Yeah.
No one's going to be up with Mary. So don't let your child die because you can't be up at her level of suffering.
That's right.
So, well,
Wow, that's a great reading.
I'm sorry?
That's a great reading.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I was going the other way on it the whole way. It's just the preservation of the child, it's like an instinctive reaction.
Yeah,
So you hear stories of this all the time, of people who are in crashes or things that are going down, and
Yeah,
the
it's
parents have the option
Yeah.
to save the children, and they do it consistently.
Save my baby, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
My sense is, Stephen, that Solomon could anticipate that because he sensed that the mother of the child, whoever that might be, would follow that basic notion, would care,
Okay.
because it's part of her body.
What's
And that they're, and not only from custom, but from nature, fuses.
With Solomon, you have the mother factor going because his mom was Bathsheba, who did lose her first child because of David's sin. So Solomon's got the Bathsheba mother thing too. And she lost her first son because of King David's sin. She's the one who lost her baby.
That's really,
So he's going to know a lot about the woman because of Bathsheba being his mom.
that's cool.
I also think it's important to remember this is a written story. If he let's say he said he thought that, and he was wrong because the mom's like fucking crazy and said, yeah, kill a kid, I don't care. It never would have gotten written down. It never would have made it to the Bible. So I think
There must be a lot of those.
so. I think second guessing what Solomon was thinking is kind of not really the issue. I think it's more like
But
what is the
we're
political
curious.
point?
But we're curious,
Mhm.
But what I was going to say more straightforward is that there are good reasons. There's this idea of the good reasons that people follow. Okay. That's a good. You recognize. It may not work, when you go and do it. You act, you suffer, you learn it. In that particular case, and in that particular moment, in Solomon, it was not a good reason because it was not successful. So finally, you can't really know, okay? But you do what you can in terms of probability, okay? This would be the opposite probability, not as a science, but with your lived experience, without getting into phenomenology and all of that kind of stuff. Okay? But that's the best I can do. That's it's an interesting question.
Well, did Solomon have children of his own? Presumably a king at that time would have had multiple wives, a favorite child, the preservation of the favorite child to carry the line to continue the dynasty. There's as much political thinking in that and economic thinking in that as there is the attachment of, who's going to be the favorite child. And the conundrum that royalty always have had about the older son
The
who's
law
the
of the first
incompetent,
son.
like Prince Charles.
Yeah.
is the quintessential example of that in contemporary time. It's just, you know, it's gonna lead past him, because his mother didn't have another son, and doesn't think he deserves it.
So it's constant, gnomes. But it's got to be connected some way or another with fuses, with nature. The observance of a mother, lion, cat, whatever, okay, generically, protecting the little ones at all costs. Then you have the phenomenon of pushing them out of the nest, okay, at a certain point in time.
Well, I mean, he does, on page 48, he actually does, Lyotard gestures towards that. It's actually the fourth interchange down where he says, he's talking back to his interlocutor, he says, but it means that the motivation to judge is actually part of the real. And I was going to ask a question about that either. I mean, is this the indeterminate real? Is this the...
See, this is really, the language here is really wild, because he's trying to get away from Lacan. So, what's in the background here, damn it,
Put those together so it's not alone.
here it is that you think, what did Lacan do to this? The imaginary, the symbolic, the real, or little object other, the stand-in, and the real could be right here, okay? Along with the other, okay? Which is totally bizarre, totally bizarre. So if you have that, that has to echo in French, as it does in English. Remember, he says, you think that you have won. That's when you think that you have won. That is, you know what's the story, the truth is here, okay, in that sense. What is real and not real. Okay. Which one is the right mother? Okay. Could you tell a story and make it believable? Switching that around, the Solomon story, as an exercise, in trying to make the mother who says, cut the baby in two. I mean, could you think of some motives that would make it believable? I can.
I can too.
Yeah.
I mean, not all parents attach to their children this way. And, I mean, the world is rife with examples of this. I mean, we see it because we gather the statistics. We see more and more of it. Some people just don't attach, and so as a subterfuge in a regime that proscribes infanticide. There you go. That's the only way to get rid of the child.
It's not unusual in class, and of course, you know, this has to be critiqued as well after I say it, which you can do very easily, I think, without our going into it. And there is the mother who kills the baby and feeds it to her husband, the father of this baby, as for revenge. And that scheme fits into quite a few stories.
But it can also be the case of a mother that feels that it's better for the child to die than to live that possible life that could be. Beautiful French film about a woman that kills it's called, it's something about I've always loved you or something like that, and she's in jail.
Kristen got Thomas, right?
Or
Kristen got Thomas. Oh, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
It's a very recent film, a French film, but anyway, she decides to kill her son because the son was suffering. He was ill, but it could be whatever reason. Then it's basically the same quotation mark kind of sacrifice, but you still doing the other way.
We can think the exceptions. There is this sort of, and so we can't know. Because unless we really know, we think we really know somebody well. And that's trying to figure out what their ethos is. You know, you think you meet someone and you know you've known them for maybe a couple months. Well, you don't know them yet, unless you have seen them over a period of time that would allow for them to be tested in the best of times and the worst of times, and how they respond. That's when you get to understand someone's ethos.
Andrea Yates, when she drowned her kids, thought that she was helping them. And Beloved, you have the
Yeah,
novel
there are
there.
plenty of examples, yes.
I always loved you is the name of, well, translated directly.
So that makes an answer to your question. We have to bring in this. I mean, Lacan.